Daniel?
Oh,
Good Day with Daniel Bennett.
good day.
Welcome to another episode of Good Day. My name is Daniel Bennett. It's great to have you join. And our topic today is going to be a continuation of what I was talking about in the last episode, probably yesterday, if you watched it yesterday. And so I'll be talking about transportation and how that ties in with some deeper thoughts and insights on location and limitations and how they affect us and things like that. I do want to start off by reminding you that at gooddaygtn.com you can get a free copy of this booklet, How to Become a Water Walker. You know, the reason why I chose this book, so I didn't write this one, it's by Andrew Womack, but I choose which one we give away for the show, and I just encourage this one because I really do feel like to enjoy life more, it's not always about studying comfort. Sometimes it's about studying how to take risk, how to step out of the boat, how to go on adventures. I feel like life is more fun, more exciting. It's easier to have a good day when you're pushing yourself, into new territory with God. And so How to Become a Water Walker, right? It talks about, responding by faith, hearing God's voice. And that's one of the keys to miracles. It's the key to miracle is hearing Jesus. When Jesus tells you to do something and you do it, then that's how miracles happen, is you're responding to Him. So I encourage you to go to gooddaygtn.com to check that out. You can get the physical copy or the digital copy. And in the future, you can, we'll have other ones every month. And so you can check those out also. So we'll be talking more about transportation here in a bit. But first, I want to do a quick topical study on obedience. So I'll read 3 quotes on obedience and then 3 scriptures on obedience. This isn't a full teaching, just to stir up some thoughts. So the first one is by, I can't even say this. You can read the name of the guy. So obedience is the mother of success and is wedded to safety. So there's some insight in that, right? So the mother of success is that, I'd say this is really tied to learning from others. It's saying people who've lived longer than me, who've done things that I haven't done yet, they can give me wisdom so that I can succeed more, right? If someone knows what it takes to succeed, I can listen to them. If you want to go farther than other people in life, you need to avoid the mistakes that they made. So if someone's made other mistakes, they can pass along to you what they wish they knew, then you can go even farther. I hope I go farther than the people I learn from, and then I hope that my kids can go even farther, right? And we should always, there's such thing as an inheritance of wisdom, not just inheritance of money. And so I believe that anytime we learn from others, what we're doing is we're gaining from their wisdom so we can go farther. What took someone else 20 years, I could read in a book. Now, it doesn't mean that I've mastered it as deeply as they have, but it gives me a good head start where maybe I can master it in 3 years instead of 20 years. And that way I can go faster and faster and faster. So, and being wedded to safety, right, is, there's safety in the multitude of counselors. And so when you're willing to listen to others, it doesn't mean that you have to do what they say, but they're giving you perspectives that you might not have. And so it allows you to make better decisions. And so there's safety in that. So that makes sense. This next one, I don't know how to pronounce that, Solon or Solon. He who has learned how to obey will know how to command. And that's interesting too, because it's kind of similar to the scripture where the centurion says, I understand authority because I'm also under authority. The key to having authority is to being submitted to authority, where he says, look, when I tell my soldiers what to do, it's not because of who I am, it's because that I'm submitted to my leaders and they're submitted to their leaders and they're submitted to Caesar, right? So learning to obey, learning how to serve is how you learn how to lead also, because if you're a good servant, then when you're in the leadership role, you realize, well, leadership is just a different type of serving. And so it gives you more insight on that. I wouldn't say it's foolproof, but being a good servant can help you be a good leader. Knowing how to obey can help you know how to command, because you know how to, you can put yourself in the other person's shoes, know the best way to go about it. So this last quote is by Christina Rossetti. It says, obedience is the fruit of faith. I like this one a lot because really that's probably the most profound one here, is that, when we're talking about obeying God, and obeying God doesn't just mean if He says go to the store, you go to the store, but obeying God is if God says you're holy, you say, yes, sir, I'm holy. If He says you're healed, you say, yes, sir, I'm healed. If He says you're full of love and wisdom, yes, sir, I'm full of love and wisdom. So it means believing Him also, if He tells you something's true about yourself. But it all comes from trust. If you don't obey God, right, if you know Him and you trust Him, you're good, you love me, you would never lead me to do something that's bad for me. So I trust you so much that when you ask me to obey, I always know that it's for the best. It's always for my good. So the more we trust God, the more fun it sounds to obey, right? If you have an enemy or someone who dislikes you or someone self-centered or selfish, and they're telling you what to do, then you're like, I don't want to obey because that's bad for me, good for you. But when you know if the person you love most in the world, who loves you most in the world, and you need to obey them, you're like, well, of course I'll obey you because I know you love me. I know you want what's best for me. And so it's exciting. So obedience is the fruit of faith. The more we trust God, the more excited we are and easy it is to obey and take leaps of faith. So 3 scriptures now. Deuteronomy 5, verse 33 says, you shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God has commanded you, that you may live and that it may be well with you, and that you may prolong your days in the land which you shall possess. Right? So walk in all the ways of the Lord which he commanded you. Again, I'm all about friendship with God, relationship with God, but that doesn't exclude the fact that he is king, he is God. So it's not just like we're friends, and if he says one thing, I say something else, right? Let's just agree to disagree, God. No, when God commands something, we need to obey. Like there's multiple facets to our walk with him, where yes, we can be friends with God, but we also need to remember he's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Jesus is, God is the king. So when he commands us to do things, it's not to harm us. It's not to take advantage of us. It's because, right, it's so that we may live and that it may be well with us, so that he can prolong our days and we'll have what he's promised us, basically, right? When he commands us to do things, it's because he loves us and he's saying, go here and do this because I love you, because this will be really good for you. Trust me. So the next one is John 14, verse 15. Jesus says, if you love me, keep my commandments. And you can go on where he talks about my commandments aren't burdensome, right? My commandment is to love one another and love others as I've loved you. And so he's not talking about like him being this evil, selfish dictator, or this egomaniac who's just commanding you and just, in a negative way. But he's saying, no, but if you love him, you keep his commandments. If people say they love God, and then they completely walk after the flesh, they don't actually love God. They don't actually trust God because he's leading them to do other things. He's leading them to overflow with life and goodness and kindness and joy and holiness. That's what's inside of us. So again, if we love him, keep his commandments. But then his commandments are very, very good. 1 Samuel 15, verse 22. So 1 Samuel 15, 22 says, so Samuel said, has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord. Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. So again, sometimes people will get, there's some circles in the Christian world where everything's very harsh and legalistic, and it's all about following a list of rules, and no relationship with God, just rules, rules, rules. So people get set free from that, and then they think, oh, obedience is a bad thing. I'm in freedom. But true freedom and true obedience go hand in hand. They're not against each other. True freedom is that we're in his kingdom, but he's still the king in his kingdom. And so we realize obedience is a good thing because he's directing me to things that are very good. He's trying to set me free. He wants me to know the truth. He wants me to walk with him. So they go hand in hand. They're not negative. We could go a lot more in depth on this, but obedience is a very good thing if we have a healthy understanding of it, and we know who it is that we're obeying. So to obey is better than sacrifice. It's a very key verse. There's a Keith Green song about it that I like too. So now I want to switch to this quick little promo about the booklet we're giving away, and then we'll see you right back and talk more about transportation and location. So I'll see you in a minute.
You know, life comes with all kinds of storms. But when your boat is sinking, you might want to step out and learn how to be a water walker. Log on to gooddaygtn.com to get your free copy today.
And like I said, today we're talking about transportation. I know it's an unusual topic, but what I was talking about yesterday is that there's different types of transportation, and usually it captures our imagination for some reason. You know, people love, whether it's superpowers of transportation, being able to fly or swing or jump or teleport, or even just vehicles. People might love cars or trucks or airplanes or jets, all kinds of stuff, even, skateboards, all kinds, right? Transportation is just a major thing that for some reason humans are just very drawn to. I believe it's just because it's a natural limitation. And so it's fun to break past limitations in creative ways. The ones I talked about yesterday, so I'm covering 4 main thoughts on this. I covered yesterday, the better our transportation is, the more options we have, right? Again, Superman can fly, so he has more options. He can get places much faster. Imagine that you have super strength, but you walk really slow, then you won't save the day very often. You'll need someone to drive you around. You'll have to take a taxi to go save the day. So you have more options, the better your transportation is, right? It's similar to like when someone has a private jet, they can fly one place to go for a few hours and then fly back home the same day. If you are going on a normal airliner, that's much more difficult because you have to wait in the lines forever, security and baggage and all this kind of stuff. And so the better your transportation, the more options you have. If you have to walk everywhere, especially in the US, when I lived in other countries, you could walk places, take the subway, take buses and all that. In many parts of the US, if you don't have a car, it's really hard to get anywhere. And so if you have to walk and you live, an hour away walking from everywhere, it's much more challenging. So the better your transportation, the more options you have, the better you are at packing, planning, all that kind of stuff. Also, the reason is because location limits us. Life is full of difficult decisions. So where you are affects who you hang out with. It affects, the options that you have, the opportunities you have, things like that, what you have access to, which hobbies make sense, right? Just the other day, my daughter, we've been doing this for years, but we play little rhythmic gymnastics videos on the TV, and she gets a hula hoop and she gets ribbons and stuff, and she copies them and dances around. And a couple of days ago, she was saying, I wish I could learn to do this, take lessons. And I was like, there really aren't rhythmic gymnastics gyms in Woodland Park, right? And there might be one within 2 hours or something. And so if we lived near a studio that had that, we could do that. But since we don't, we can't, So where you live, it limits which options you have. You might really be interested in a hobby, and you just, depending on if it's important to you, you might need to move somewhere else, or you might just not get to be as engaged in that. So limitations force us to make tough decisions and to be more creative. It forces us to really focus on what's my top priority. For some people, right, it's moving to a Karis location, saying, well, this is a priority, so it's a huge hassle, right? But what we find is when you pay that price, you take it more seriously and you say, I'm here, I'm serious about this. I made a sacrifice to be here because it's really, really important to me. And so people who make that leap very often are rewarded by saying, this is an opportunity I wouldn't have had back where I was before. So the third one that I ended with yesterday was that no matter where you go, you're still you. Just changing, and I'll balance this in a minute, but just changing your location doesn't change you. And I found this in life, is when you go somewhere else, right? If you change your job or you move somewhere else, you still feel the same. You're still the same person. If you're a jerk one place and you move, you're going to be a jerk there too. If you have no faith one place and you move, you'll have no faith there too. And like I said, I'll balance this out, but imagine this, right? Imagine that you're broke, you have no money, and someone gives you a ticket to an airplane ticket to anywhere in the world you want to go. So you go there and guess what? You're still broke. It's not just true with money, it's true with your wisdom. If you have no wisdom now, then if you travel somewhere else, you still have no wisdom there. If you have no faith, then you still won't have any faith. Some people think, well, right now I don't serve and I don't trust God, but as soon as I become a missionary, then I will. Why would going somewhere else suddenly allow you to be good at things you weren't good at back home? Right? One of the things we say here a lot is be fruitful, then multiply. right? Learn to be fruitful, and then it makes sense to send you somewhere else, instead of saying like, oh, go somewhere else and then figure out how to be fruitful. So you don't magically learn new skill sets when you travel. Now, there are some differences, but again, it's if you aren't faithful in your work right now, if you don't have a spirit of excellence right now, and you say, well, when I start my own business, then I will. You're changing locations, but you don't have any practice now, so you'll have to learn from scratch how to have a spirit of excellence and work hard. So again, adventures can be fun. Changing locations can be a lot of fun. I recommend it. I talked in the past about new beginnings and fresh starts and all the benefits of that. Adventures can help us grow. I'm just saying the location itself doesn't change us. But what does change us is that when we change locations, it creates different opportunities. And those different opportunities, right? Opportunities with relationships or with work or serving or whatever it is, when we make different opportunities that can lead us to making different decisions, and those different decisions are what changes us. So I hope that makes sense. Is changing locations won't change you, but it will give you new opportunities where you now could potentially change based on your decisions. It's kind of like when I joined the military, and some people joined, right? So I joined the Marines first when I was 19, and then I got sick, so I never finished boot camp. And then I did the Air Force later, and I did that for longer. I did that for 4 years active duty and then some in the reserves. But when I joined the Marines, what was funny is some people showed up and they're like, okay, I joined, make me a Marine. And they're like, we're not going to make you a Marine. We'll create an environment where you either become one or you fail, right? And so some people are kind of like, oh, this is going to take no work on my part. I just signed up and now you do all the hard work. And they're like, no, we're going to create an environment where you have to either rise to the occasion or we'll weed you out. And so the same thing in everything is some people think if I change my location, it'll magically happen. And it's like, no, changing your location creates an opportunity, but it's up to you if you actually change or not. Again, so it's important to balance it out because there are different relationships. Sometimes if you're in a negative situation, sometimes changing locations is all you need. I never understand why some people are miserable. They don't like their work. They don't like their friends. They don't like their city. They don't like the weather. They don't like anything about it. And it just is weird to me, like move. It's a big world out there. And maybe it's just because I've moved my whole life. So maybe I don't have the same attachment some people have to locations. But when I see people, it's like what's keeping you where you are? Just move, go somewhere else. What's the most exciting place you can think of? Go there, just move there. Pick something that sounds like you would be stepping out of the boat. To do a little product placement real quick. Become a water walker. But, just why not do it? I don't get why so many people are attached to something. I think it's just the comfortable side of things. And I'm all about comfort. The Holy Spirit's the comforter, but he's not the comfortable. If you want to walk with God, it's going to be uncomfortable, but he comforts you. So it's a difference. Instead of saying like, I'm going to be comforted, I'm comfortable in my flesh will never be pushed out of its comfort zone. Walking with God in the natural will be very uncomfortable. I'll always be stretching out of my comfort zone, but he will comfort me, so it'll still be good. So going somewhere new is only part of it. Again, talking about transportation, location, is that if you change locations, don't think that by itself was the key. It's that, no, now that I'm in a new location, I can make different decisions. If I make the exact same decisions, I'll get the exact same results. So transportation, changing locations is only part of it, but it is a valuable part of it, right? It's all about the decisions we make. Imagine like Iron Man could fly, but he decided to become a bird watcher. That'd be a very different movie, right? If you just see him flying around using all his super genius and his technology just to fly near birds and watch them fly, as opposed to saving the world, stuff like that. So it's being able to do something, having good transportation, going somewhere new. Everyone will handle it differently. What decisions do you make when you're there? So the fourth thought that I want to end with is that basically, what are you going to do when you get there? And I've talked about this before. I was so fascinated with missions growing up, and I really, I still love missions, but growing up, I realized afterwards that I was very fascinated about getting there, going to interesting places, going in interesting ways. I used to daydream about, I want to go places you can only get to by boat, or you have to parachute in, or you have to get there by, you have to get a dirt bike and climb mountains and all this stuff. And I was very fascinated by how exciting it sounded to get somewhere really hard to get. And then when I became a missionary and I started going places, I realized, what was I going to, I'm here, what am I going to do now? And I realized I was so focused on getting there, I had no idea what to do once I got there. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll just help with this and help with that. And I realized getting there really doesn't change anybody else's life except my own. What am I going to do when I get there? So again, who you are now is who you're going to be when you get there, like I mentioned before. Location matters, but what are you going to do with that opportunity? Like I said, imagine that you're surrounded, like you choose a location and you're surrounded by the most amazing people in the world, but you have no social skills, right? So I'm surrounded by amazing people, but I don't know how to get along with them. I don't know how to learn from them. I don't know how to become friends with them. What if you get your dream job, but you don't know how to do it, right? Man, say you dream of being a movie director and you finally become a movie director and you're like, I don't know how to direct movies, right? See, getting the location is only part of it. Do we actually have the skills to take advantage of it? Do we have the mindset, the heart, the excellence, the ability and all that to actually take advantage of the opportunities? All right, Proverbs 22 verse 29 says, do you see a man who excels in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before unknown men. Right, so that's true wherever you are. It's true now and it's true in the future, is if you excel in your work, it'll create opportunities for you that other people don't get. You'll get connected with other people who do a really good job with things. And so if that's true now, it's also true when you go somewhere else. So again, changing location is part of it. But if you excel in your work, that's one of the keys also. It's like, hey, I want to excel in my work now. And see, that's kind of the point I want to wrap up with, is don't wait for the perfect location. Don't wait for the perfect circumstances or the perfect environment. Maybe right now you're not surrounded by the people that you really want to be in relationship with, or maybe you're not surrounded by you're not in the job that you really want, you're not in the city you really want to be in, things like that. Pray about it. It's what's the right time to change your location, but I'd say don't wait for the right location. You can start growing right now. You can become excellent in what you do right now. You can begin preparing right now, learning, practicing, right? Again, I say this all the time, but don't wait until you have kids to learn about parenting. Don't wait until you have kids to learn patience and kindness and wisdom and empathy. Don't wait until you're married to learn about communication and healthy conflict and things like that. Don't wait until you're sick to learn about healing. Don't wait until you have a job to learn about work ethic. We don't have to wait till we're in the perfect location. We can practice and grow right now, so that when we're in the right location, we can rise to the occasion and take advantage of that opportunity. So again, don't wait until you're in your dream location to learn how to embrace the things that you want to embrace, to learn how to embrace the right opportunities. And so I hope that's helpful. I want to wrap up with some Q&A. And let me see here. I lost that paper. All right. So this first question I'll start off with is, how do I build the courage to pursue things that scare me? So that's kind of similar to what I've been talking about. But building the courage to pursue things that scare you, I'd really say is practice. There's probably different ways to go about it. You can find people who've done it before and they can encourage you, and you can, make lists of pros and cons, but really I'd say practice, right? Do things that scare you. And as you do it more and more, you realize this is actually kind of fun. There's times when I've had this mindset of, this is scary. I might not be good at it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I realized, that's one of the best ways to grow, is you keep stepping out of your comfort zone and doing things. Things that I do today that are fun used to scare me 10 years ago. Things that I did 10 years ago used to scare me 20 years ago. Things that today might scare me and stretch me out of my comfort zone, in 10 years, I'll be like, oh, that's easy and fun. I enjoy it. So I think one of the keys is, again, courage is when you're afraid, but you do it anyway. And so just practice. Keep doing things that scare you, especially stepping out of the boat, walking by faith, things like that. And it'll get easier and easier. Even if you fail, you just get back up, right? So it's not the end of the world. Next question is, how do I know when it's time to let go of something or someone in my life? That's a good question. There's many seasons in life, like I've been talking about, is what's the right time to change? And I would say, asking God, right? What's the fruit? Do I still see fruit where I'm at? is this still the right season, or do I feel like the grace is lifted, that I'm not seeing the fruit in my life or in what I'm doing? Many times people lose the grace for a season and they don't realize it, so they hang on. If you start to feel miserable at something you used to enjoy, maybe God's been leading you somewhere else and you haven't kept up with him, and so you're in the wrong season. You're still living last chapter. And God's like, hey, I'm over here now. I want you to come join me over here. So again, that takes practice, but practicing hearing God's voice, hearing the leading of the Holy Spirit, realizing do I feel like I'm thriving right now? Because I've had jobs, I'll use jobs as an example, same is true with relationships, but where I love it and it's absolutely amazing, and then one day I hate it. And I was like, the last thing I want to do is this. And at first you think the job changed, it's because of this new person or this new policy. But I've learned to step back and say, no, because if I had the grace for this, that wouldn't be a big problem. I think it's time for me to leave. I think it's a new season. Or maybe it's I need to change my approach. I need to change something in my heart. So I always have that discussion of, okay, I feel like the grace is lifted. Do I need to change how I approach this, or do I need to actually change my location? Do I need to go somewhere else? Same with relationships. If you realize, you know what, I treasure this relationship, I still love this person, but I actually don't feel called to this anymore. I feel like I'm doing this out of guilt. I'm hanging out with this person because I care about them, but they're actually dragging me down. They're trying to pull me in a direction I don't want to go in my life. And so, again, doesn't mean you have to stop loving people, that you don't stay in touch with people, but there is a place to say, my priority is to go this direction with God, and I can't get there if I still put this much time into this relationship. Next question. So how do I improve my self-discipline so I don't procrastinate? That's a good one. If you know the answer, let me know. Just kidding. Procrastination, and I've joked about it before probably, but I literally have bought a book on procrastination, and it took me forever to read it. And then when I started it, it took me like years. I started it and I set it down and I didn't finish it for years. And I was like, the irony, I was like, it's a pretty good gimmick, right? If you write a book on procrastination, it could be blank and no one would ever find out because everyone who buys it won't read it. And so I did finally read it, had some tips on it, but really I'd say, again, make the tough choices. Say, what is it that I'm doing instead of doing this? Because that shows where my priorities are, right? Follow the fruit. If I choose this, it means that deep down inside, no matter what I tell myself, that's more important to me. And so reassess and say, do I need to make any changes? Do I need to cut anything out of my life? Do I need to make any adjustments? If my priorities aren't what I wish they were, how can I change them? So it is a big deal. I encourage you not to procrastinate, but when you feel it's the right timing, just go for it. Make the tough call, let go of things that are holding you back. Again, that's it for today. As we wrap up, I encourage you to go to gooddayGTN.com. We have this free booklet, How to Become a Water Walker by Andrew Womack. Again, this is very, everything I talk about really ties into this, about taking leaps of faith, stepping out of the boat, doing things you've never done before. So I hope it's helpful. It's also a cool transportation miracle. We'll see you next time, and have a good day.